launching today, I see that we have several people that have joined us, and they will not be disappointed because I am not alone in reviewing this book. I have with me two distinguished people, in addition to the author. Uh, Before I introduce my distinguished panelists, let me just say that I have been literally a student of uh, the person I call Agassi Rail for close to, I would say close to 30 years. I was one of the recipients of his first book, Lamentations, which spoke to me a lot. And I remember in the 90s selling several of those books. And this one is just another worthy addition to not only African literature, but to the collection of narrative on the Nigerian Civil War and Biafra. Um, so I've written a review of the book because I really enjoyed reading the book. It spoke to me. I was a young boy during the Civil War, and several pieces of that, several passages there spoke to me. And so we'll be talking about that shortly. But before I do that, I need to introduce my fellow panelists. First of all, we have Mrs. Evangeline A. Ugoji, who upon researching her, I would call a Renaissance person, a cultural connoisseur. In this vein, she appreciates, promotes, and supports progressive aspects of the cultures that she's exposed to. She's also a passionate consumer of literature and literary works, and is currently working on her collection of poems and prose, which she assures us she will be publishing very soon.
Wow. Okay.
She's a linguist. She's fluent in English, French, Spanish, and the everyday variations of Pidgin English. She is fluent in the Igbo language and its various dialects. Evangeline is a longtime resident of Trenton, New Jersey, which for her has become a home away from home in Nigeria. She's a consummate public servant, civil organizer, and community activist in Trenton city politics. And then we have Mrs. Amadi, who is enjoying her retirement after over 20 years working for the Internal Revenue Service. I thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
She was awarded the United States 20 years IRS award for her loyal and devoted service. Before her tenure at the IRS, Cecilia had worked in various capacities for the city of New York. For the past 15 years, the congregation of St. Savior at St. John, the Divine Cathedral in New York, has trusted her with their funds as the congregation's treasurer. Cecilia is also highly regarded in her Unzuko Aruchukwu, New York, New Jersey community. She has served as the first and hopefully not the last female president of this prestigious cultural organization. She is currently the trusted treasurer of the group. Finally, but not the least, Dr. Cyril Orji is retired after over 20 years in the industry as a software engineer with telecommunication companies and defense contractors, and nearly 15 years in academia as a computer science professor. Cyril is an attentive observer. He enjoys talking about politics and writing short stories based on everyday observation. His debut book, Lamentations of an Immigrant Bringing Up a Family in the Diaspora, is still available for whomever wants to read it. It's a great book. I also recommend it. His latest book, Why We Are Here, First is Last, is a fictional recollection of the experiences of the Igbo people during the Nigerian Civil War. He currently blogs about everything at cyrg.wordpress.com. Initially, this is a great thing. Initially, I had thought I was the only one that had read the book, but this is not true. Literally, every person on this panel has read this book, and I believe Ms. Ugoji has read the book twice. So we are going to have a very good time talking about the book, and also having a dialogue with the author about the book. So I'll talk briefly about the book, then I will ask my fellow panelists to talk about their impressions of the book. Listen to me, I've been reviewing books for like 20, 30 years. I like this book. I am a student of the narrative on the Nigerian Civil War, and by my estimation, there are at least 100 books written on the Civil War. And this one, from my perspective, is a very important, very unique addition um, to the narrative about the Civil War. It is important that those who experienced that war speak up in song, speak up in writing about what happened, because in my view, Nigeria will never be the same until we come to closure on what happened from 1967 to 1970. And this book will take you through it. One primary reason I like this book is there are very few books where an inanimate object becomes a character. And there is a book, this book has 34 Chukwani. This compound is literally a character in the book. And you follow it. You follow the book, you follow the compound, and you follow the owners of that compound in peacetime. And your heart breaks when the compound breaks down, literally. It's a metaphor for what Nigeria was. That particular compound, Chukwani, 34 Chukwani. I liked it so much, I was telling the author, maybe you should have named the book 34 Chukwani. And he was laughing, but you even through the war, from the beginning to the end, the focus is on what happens to the inhabitants of as they spread out and as they try to reconnect. Many of us who I was a 6-year-old during the war, and I was in Benin City when the Biafrans overran Benin City. I don't know how many of you will remember that. It was quite traumatic. So actually I was an 8-year-old, and my little brother was a 6-year-old. And I remember the trauma of war at that time. So reading this book and reading the terms Afia attack, reading about the Red Cross, about wheat, about milk, about oporoko, stockfish, literally triggered me, because these were I was exposed to as a little much of the war, but they brought these things for us as relief materials, and we were eating stockfish, we were using milk, we were using wheat. I found out quickly that I am lactose intolerant, because I would take milk, and me and the other boys will sprint to the latrines of our school. They meant well, but they didn't know that these are things that you really didn't do to West Africans. So I urge you, I ask you to buy this book, to support this book, and to read it, because it is very important that we remember. It is also very important that our children and our grandchildren remember what happened. I'm now in a phase where I'm now buying books from Africa and sending them to my 4 kids to read, because it is important. We won't be around forever, but they need to know the joys, the trauma of what happened to. So that's an initial introduction about the book from my perspective. I'm going to ask Ms. Ugorji to take over and talk about the book from her reading of it and from her perspective.